All right. So, hi, I'm Hyun Shin. I'm you guys' TA, and I'm gonna talk about the first assignment. So here I'll talk about brief overview of what this assignment is about, and after that I'll explain about our platform. So, this assignment is about abusive language detection. So basically, a lot of social network services are basically doing content moderation to filter out some bad content. But here, the motivation of this assignment is that a classifier for doing this abusive language detection tends to classify Twitch written in African American English, which is a dialect of English, as more abusive than Twitch written in Standard American English. So this is certainly a bias. So here in this assignment, we are first figuring out whether this bias actually exists in a certain data set. And after we figured out there's a bias, then we next are going to mitigate such bias. So there are such two objectives of this assignment. So here is a brief scenario of machine learning pipeline. So we are basically going through this machine learning model building process. So from data set, we pre-process and we build a model and evaluate the model, and we basically deploy it. And have a data set like Twitch, and we basically pre-process this to feed this into the model. By the way, these are not the most important part of this assignment. So I'll just quickly go over that. So we will pre-process it. So we translate the Twitch into the vector, and we basically feed this into the model called logistic regression. And we also try to find the best parameter for the logistic regression. And we train the model. So hey, here we have a trained logistic regression. And with the with the splitting data set, we can also evaluate the model. So here's the performance. And so far, we talked about the model building, and now our assignment is starting. So let's say we deployed this model, and live social network services like Twitter actually use this model, for example. And there is Twitch, which is another source, which means that we haven't used this Twitch for our training. And the Twitch consists of two groups. The first group is 10,000 African American English Twitch, and the other group is 1,000 African American, and the other is 1,000 Standard American English Twitch. And we feed this Twitch into the logistic regression model, and we basically see how our model give a prediction. And here's the result. So what our model does is basically classify a single tweet into whether it is hateful tweet or offensive tweet or neither of those. And here's the result. Here, so 0.075 means our model classified like 75 tweets out of 1,000 tweets. Our model classified 70,000 African American English tweets as hateful. And this means 217 tweets were classified as offensive. And for Standard American English, 8 tweets were classified as hateful, and 30 tweets were classified as offensive. And as you can see here, African American tweets are classified as more hateful and offensive in this result. So if we basically substitute these values, we get 0.067 and 0.1187 for both labels. And we call this measure as statistical parity difference. So we can use this statistical parity difference as a measure of bias. Of course, this is not just a single measure to measure the bias. There are tons of different measures, but in our assignment, we are gonna focus on this value. So here, the first task is to basically compute this value. And all of these numbers are basically given by us. So we give very rich code base. And here, what you need to do first is to compute this value. So far, we talked about model building. And with this computation, we realized that, oh, there is a bias in our model. And the next question is, what happened actually? Why this bias is happening? So we go back to our data set, and we see the distribution of labels. So here, let's say our data set consists of 20,000 tweets. And if we plot the distribution of labels, here you can see that offensive labels are very, there is a large amount of offensive labels. And if we decompose this tweet into African American English and Standard American English, we can see very interesting distribution. So here, African American English, there are lots of offensive tweets, and Standard American English, the distribution is different. So we maybe think about, oh, maybe the cause of bias is that there are too many offensive tweets to be trained, which means our model tends to predict more offensive tweets. So the second task is to implement a technique called undersampling, which basically means we sample a little bit of offensive tweets in our data set and train that into our model. And the next part is also another bias mitigation technique. So the undersampling is bias mitigation technique, and here another technique. So we are, let me give you a very high level overview. So we are using this logistic regression, and we classify tweets by the probability that the logistic regression model produces. So let's say, and we also have a threshold. So if the probability is larger than this threshold, then we classify it as an offensive. And as we have more high threshold, then the result is gonna be different. And here, this bias mitigation technique basically gives different thresholds for different groups. So African American English, we have relatively high threshold, and Standard American English, we give relatively low threshold, like this, so that we can have mitigated result. Detailed explanations are also given, so you don't have to worry about that. And here, the third task is to implement this technique. So basically, there are 3 techniques to implement. The first one is about how to compute the bias measurement. And the second one is bias mitigation technique called undersampling. The third one is reject option-based classification, which I just introduced. And after going through these tasks, it is highly encouraged to explore your own method for measuring and mitigating bias. And I'll talk about the platform. So here is the course website. And if you go to assignments tab, yeah, my internet is bad. So yeah, we have an assignment tab. And here you can see detailed description and grading policies as well. And you can go to this interactive platform. If you click that, then here we go. So the first plane is about explanation. So if you select start activity, so this platform consists of 3 planes. The first one is about data exploration and the model training. So here, the essence of this platform is you don't have to think too much about how to build a model, like how to evaluate the model, something like that. We just already give all the things. So on the left, you can see raw data and some helpful visualizations as well about the data itself. And on the right, we already give the result of the model performance. So we just assume that we have logistic regression trained with this data set, and here's the result. And also we have 2 different data sets about the abusive language detection. So you can play with it. So this is the first plane. And the next plane is about bias testing. So in the first plane, we talked just about model. We didn't talk about any bias issues. So after building model and measuring the performances, now we are talking about the bias. And as I explained before, on the left, we have whole different data set, which has not been used in the training. So here we have a training data set for testing the bias. And we have 2 labels. The first one is dialect, African American or Standard American, like this. So you can basically explore this data set as well. And also we offer the predictive label, which means here is the prediction of our model that has been built from previous stage. So on the left, you can basically explore the data set, and on the right, you can see the result. Here, the result means the bias testing. And this number is what I explained earlier, right? And here's the difference. So basically, these are exactly the same with the slide. And also, you can see some visualization here about regarding this bias testing. And details can be examined from you guys. So yeah, so far we talked about the first plane, data exploration and model building, model testing. And on the second plane, you can explore the bias testing. So far we have talked about the bias testing, and third phase, log out. So you will have this Jupyter notebook, which means you can basically implement something here. And we basically give all the codes regarding that. And we have an account. So the address ID is you and your student number, like this. I already created. So if it doesn't work, then please let me know. I can fix it. Make sure you put you in front of that. And the password default is your student number. Yeah, it is very vulnerable. So yeah, so the first thing you should do is to change the password first. Okay, please make sure that. And to do that, click this new. And there's a terminal. Got it? And if you go to there, then you can see the screen, basically the Linux terminal, and type PASSWD. And after that, you can see this assignment template. Here's your code skeleton, basically. And there are 2 additional files that you don't actually need to see deeply. And here, if you go there, then here is the environment of basically coding. And you can actually execute and see the result. And there's tons of descriptions. And note that this notebook contains whole procedure from machine learning pipeline to bias testing. And here, there is 3 specific functions that you have to complete. And there is an overall procedure of this assignment. So first, import data set and train model, evaluate the model, blah, blah, blah. But here, all the machine learning related complex computations are already given. So you don't have to implement something. So yeah, and we pretty kind of encapsulated something not really important, let's say data processing. So data processing itself is really important part in machine learning model building, but here in this assignment, it is not the most important thing. So what we did is we just encapsulate this code so that you don't have to go through all the computations here. But if you're interested, then you can go back to the root directory and see there's a process of pi. So there is a lot of functions here to compute something. So you can basically refer to it and train the model. Here, say build model, then ta-da. Evaluate the model, ta-da. And after that, so import data for testing, and also model. Also, we predict the value, and your test looks like this. So you have to fill in this function, and here's precondition, and here's post condition. Then you have to fill out this specific function. So you can see that it is basically just a blank. So you have to fill out that. And after filling out, you can basically see the result like this. I already provided the template to plot the graph or print out the matrices, something like that. If you fill out the function, then the result is gonna be just there. So yeah, this is a brief overview of the assignment, and you can read it, and yeah, there's pretty much every explanation here. If you have any question, then please let me know. Since I created this, I can answer everything.